Seems like crazy this year, the demand for tickets.
Yeah,
I've been
I feel like they're more expensive too. So
Yeah.
we were trying to get last year. We got a bracelet for 3 days because it was cheaper than doing. This time we're just going one for the day, and it seems a little more
Well,
demanding. Slash, I don't know if it was the second week. Last time we went the first week, so it might be that. But
I'm going all 3 days.
are you? Good for you.
I was trying to get my friends tickets to at least Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
but that's the most coveted one because apparently everyone likes Sabrina Carpenter.
Yeah, and T-Pain's on Sunday. So
Yeah.
that's what I hear.
But
So
tomorrow, I'm excited to see Empire of the Sun, Cage the Elephant, Luke
Yeah.
Combs.
Yeah. Oh, Luke comes there too. That's right. Yeah, my wife did say that. So might see both of them. So hey, I'm just
Yeah,
going
you're
for
in Austin.
just going for the flow. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Well, so I guess like speaking of mispronouncing stuff, like you pronounce your name Mauricio Elizondo?
Yeah. Here Mauricio Elizondo in Spanish, I guess. But
Casual.
yeah.
Where are you from?
I'm originally from a state called Sonora. It's bordered with Arizona actually. My hometown is called Ciudad Obregón. It's about 5 hours south from the border with Arizona. But I've been here for almost 22 years now in the States. Basically everywhere in the States, but yeah.
I mean, right now you're only, one state over from
Yeah.
Mexico.
Yeah, close, very close. Closer for my family to visit, closer for me to go see them. So, yeah.
How'd you end up coming to the U.S.? Like what?
I always wanted to do something related to medicine. My parents are both physicians down in Mexico, and I always liked the medical field, but I wasn't 100% committed to med school. I was also a swimmer growing up. I was a competitive swimmer, and I always loved sports. And find out about in Mexico back in that time, there wasn't a sports medicine route. There wasn't a clear path. Now there is something for kinesiology degree, but back in the day it wasn't as popular. And so I started doing my research, and I always wanted to come to the States just because of being a fan of sports. I would watch NBA games, NFL games, and I found the professional athletic training. And
you're telling me I don't have to be a doctor and I get to work in sports?
And that's exactly what I'm like. Okay, well, it's shorter careers, 4 years. My parents will tell me stories about med school and how long it took, and I was like, 4 years I can work sports and medicine, sure. And I had relatives in Oregon, in Portland. I have my uncle just recently moved there, and I asked him for, how to start the whole process and and then he recommended me to look into Oregon State. And I ended up looking. They did have the athletic training program, and it was just a matter of applying. And I did nothing. I know nothing about college. I didn't look into that colleges. I'm like, let's just apply to Oregon State, and I loved it. Loved my time there, and I definitely don't regret it at all. And I will do it again. It was a blast. It was 5 years. Yeah, it was great.
What's Corvallis, Oregon like versus?
Oh, it's such a college town, but it was great. I was there from 2003 to 2008, so I'm sure it's changed because I haven't been there since I graduated, so I haven't been back. And so I'm sure it's changed by now, but it was your typical college town, small town with everything is the university. And
to be fair, I'm from Boise, Idaho, but I've never been to Corvallis.
Well, my grad school actually went to University of Idaho, so with the Vandals, and it was a 5 or 6 hour drive from Oregon State. I did my grad school because I got a GA ship as an athletic trainer. Again, back in the day, it used to be an undergrad. Now it's a master's degree. Most of the times, people will do the master's right after as a 2-year GA ship. And I got there. I was a swimmer, and then in Idaho, I had the opportunity to do a GA with the swim team for 2 years. And so I'm like, sure, why not? Moscow is definitely a college town as well. And the coldest place I've been in my life has been Moscow, Idaho. There were times that I couldn't see my car because it was covered with snow. So it was quite the adjustment. But 2 years went by real fast, real good.
All my friends have stories of like sliding down hills.
Yeah,
like ice is over.
Yeah, that was great. It was fun. Summers were great over there. Beautiful summers. We would make trips to Coeur d'Alene often because it was like an hour and a half and beautiful hikes there. And never made it to Boise though. But
sorry, Coeur d'Alene's pretty.
It was pretty nice. Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, everything. We went a lot more north than we did actually down to Boise, but it was a far drive to Boise. I think it was what, 5 hours maybe.
It's like a deathly drive. You're driving through Hell's Canyon, like, you know.
Yeah. So we were like, nah, let's just go up north.
Yeah,
so.
There you go. And then how did you end up at the Dodgers? You went from one of the coldest places in the winters here.
Yeah. So after my grad school there, actually in between summers, my first team was with the Red Sox. So I did an internship, a summer internship in between 2008 and 2009 in Fort Myers, Florida, as their intern for the GCL League. And I did 3 months and I loved it. I went back to Idaho to finish school. And at the time I was finishing school, they had a full-time position open. And they asked me if I was interested on it. And I was like, sure. I mean, never played baseball, never actually, watched many baseball games, even though where I'm from, that area of Mexico it's a baseball town. But it was a full-time job out of grad school with Red Sox just have won the World Series. I was like, sure, why not? Let's do it. And so I ended up driving from Moscow, Idaho to Fort Myers, Florida, and moved everything that I had in my car to Fort Myers. And then, I started there in 2010 officially. It was my first full-time year, and was there until 2015. And that's when I started with the Dodgers. As I went through the minor leagues, I ended up with the Dodgers, their minor league coordinator.
I was about to say, so
for a couple of years.
That's a drive and transition. So it's like, boom, Corvallis, Moscow, okay. But then now you're down Fort Myers. You're probably like, okay, this is real. Like, I'm working in professional sport now.
Yeah, and I think during my internship, it didn't feel that great because I didn't have spring training. It was a summer internship. But then when I started there full time and I had a full spring training, I was like, all right, this is kind of cool. Like, okay, you start seeing, back in that day it was, Dustin Pedroia, David Ortiz, and you're like, okay, this is kind of cool to see them in action, start learning from people. That's where my few first mentors started, learning from them, anything related to athletic training.
Any mentors you want to shout out?
Yeah, I mean, one of my biggest mentors there, who actually, make me the push to go to PT school was, his name is Dan Dyrek. He, I still have communication with him, and he came to the Red Sox, if I remember the year correct, it's 2013. And, when I saw him practice, he's still probably the best manual therapist that I've seen or work with. The way he treated as a clinician, I was just like, man, I want to do that. I want to be able to have that knowledge. And, I started talking to him because I'm like, hey, can I just come and watch you? Because the level of skill he had, you didn't have it in athletic training school. And it wasn't something that it was taught, And he's like, sure, by all means. And I start asking him questions and seeing his evals. And he's like, he's the one that said, why don't you just go to PT school? And, why don't you try PT school? And I'm like, yeah, it's not a bad idea. If that's going to make me like practice this way, why not?
He's like, you're young. You can
say, yeah, you still do it. I mean, I was at that time, I was 28. I was like, sure. He's like, look into it. And that's when I learned from St. Augustine's Flex program, which was a part-time PT school that you could basically work at the same time and go to school. Certain weekends you'll have to go to school to do lab work. But so I was like, hey, why not? Let's give it a go. I really think that was one of the best decisions I've made, because it made me a good clinician that I am. And I think, PT school, as an ATC, PT school only sharpens your skills. It doesn't make you forget what an ATC is. It obviously is very similar, and we do a lot of the same stuff, but it just sharpens your tools. After school and practicing for a bit, now I have more in-depth conversations with Dan Dyrek than when I was 28 and I had no idea what he was talking about. So, but no, I think it was great. And obviously my mentors there for, an actual baseball perspective, Brad Pearson was the one that hired me and gave me the opportunity, to work baseball. I'll always be thankful for that.
What would you be telling young Mauricio when he was like first at the Red Sox? Like, what's kind of like the biggest thing you learned working at the Red Sox and Dodgers?
I think the biggest thing that I would do different, and that's what I would give myself an advice, would be just don't be scared. Just do it. I think at that point we get scared. Well, at least I was scared to mess up. Like these guys are pro athletes, and like you don't
almost
want
like the
you don't want
imposter.
to, yeah, you don't want to be like, dude, I messed it up, and especially with high level clinicians that are already, it's like, and I think that's how you learn. And I think that, that's something I try to tell, now my staff here at Austin FC and students is like, just try it. I'm not going to let you do something that it really, you really mess up.
You're like their
but I'm going
lifeguard.
to, but I'm going to let you, learn from those type situations. Like sometimes you have to do a treatment or do something that you're not comfortable with and you might not know much about. And, that's how you learn, because if you did it the wrong way, you're going to remember the next time you did it. So I think that would be my biggest advice, is just, go ahead and do it. Try it, be confident. And if you're not confident to show it, just do it. And then, discuss it with your mentors or your other peeps. Yeah.
There's a reason Nike has that as their slogan, right? In
athletics, just do it. Yeah. What's the worst thing that happens? So.
But I guess going chronologically, so you're in and out of Austin, you're working at the Dodgers at this point?
After Red Sox moved to Phoenix to be their minor league coordinator for 2 years. That was 2016, 2017. I actually finished PT school while I was with the Dodgers. And, I was there for a couple of years as their coordinator, and it was great. I mean, I think the move to Phoenix was short more for personal reasons. My wife had a job after this 2017 season in St. Petersburg, Florida. And so in 2018, we moved back to Florida and then to the St. Petersburg area. And that's when I started my third team with the Blue Jays. That stint was only a year long as their physical therapist.
Blue Jays are on fire right now.
Blue Jays are on fire right now. Yeah, congrats to them.
Shut the Yankees down.
Yeah. So it's funny because some of the players that I was there that they were still in the minor leagues. Now you see him in the major leagues.
There you go.
Kirk, their catcher, he was in the GCL when I was there. Vladdy Guerrero obviously was just going up to the ranks, and you could tell they're gonna be good players, and it's good to see them right now, and it's fun to watch. So
the farm league's coming through.
Yeah. And Blue Jays is a great organization. All the three organizations I work for have been great, and it's just different stages of life that happened that we had to move. And
it's our former guest, Lindsay.
Yeah. She's been through it since 2010. We met in 2010 with the Red Sox, and we've been moving way too many times. And after that, and after the Blue Jays season, things just, I needed something different from a professional standpoint. I think that I wanted different challenges at that stage in my life. And I think that's where I got introduced to tennis. My wife actually made the connection with my boss that I had there, Tal Ellenbecker, he's a big name in physical therapy, big publisher, specialist in the shoulder. He was the head ATP or the director of medical services in the tennis tour. And I was like, you know what, that sounds fun. Hey, that's a different challenge. The way it works in tennis is you're a contractor. Well, you're full-time, and you can be a full-time and a contractor. But what I mean is that if you're full-time, you have certain 20 to 22 weeks of the year that you're in a tournament. So, and then the rest of the weeks you don't have any commitment with the tour.
Got it.
But it's a lot of travel, but it's fun travel. You go to great cities in Europe, you go to great cities in South America,
who's watching
Asia,
tennis, right?
Yeah, and then tennis is massive everywhere in the world. So it was fun. And then at the same time, I wanted to start my private practice. And that's when I opened a clinic in St. Petersburg. The Performance Sports Physio was the name. PSP was for short. Start small inside of a gym, and then move on to my own little location, and did that for the next 6 years. So from 2018 to basically 2023, we were traveling with a tennis tour based in St. Pete. And then we had the private clinic, which was a cash sports type clinic. Because being in Florida, I had some referrals from baseball players coming to the clinic for off-season work, and tennis players and so forth. But
from a treatment standpoint, is tennis similar to baseball?
Yes and no. I think from a injury perspective, I think, a UCL sprain or a medial elbow pain, things happen, is basically the same type of injury. It's an overhead type injury that you see very frequent in both sports. But I think the treatment is obviously very different. One, a baseball team, you usually have a season that you can base your, for example, if it's September at the end of the season, you might treat it a little bit different from a time perspective because you want them ready for March, versus a tennis player who plays every week, and they don't make money if they don't play tournaments or they don't win tournaments. So the treatment might be a little more aggressive. So the context of the treatments are a little bit different, I would say, but the way you treat the actual injury per se, or the mechanism of it, one is throwing, one's hitting, but the actual biomechanics of the actual injury are pretty similar. Tennis, surprisingly, you see more upper and kind of lumbopelvic injuries compared to baseball. You see more of that lower back hip issues, but from an upper extremity standpoint, they're pretty similar.
Do some of those issues trace back to biomechanics, overuse in the wrong the wrong biomechanics?
Probably a mix of both. I think there's a lot of research now that correlates. There's a big influence on the lower extremity and the pelvis to the upper extremity injuries. You still have to look locally to the shoulder and the elbow and figure out what's going on there, but then you can relate it. So a tennis serve, for example, it might just be a situation which is the most common in tennis, is that they're serving too much, or they're overdoing the serve. And if they have already a mechanical flaw there that is putting stress on the arm, then it's just a recipe for disaster. Similar to baseball, they just might be, their acute to chronic loading on the throw-in was maybe a little bit too high. And if they already have, there's no such thing as good and bad mechanics. There's just mechanics that are, specific to you because of your morphology and the way your body's built. But if you overdo them, and you're going to put stress in a certain area more than the other. So two players can be serving the same way in a tennis, let's say a tennis serve, they can be serving the same way, but based on other factors, one might have his elbow hurt and one might have his lower back hurt. It really depending on that. Same with a baseball, there's been years of research of what's the perfect throwing mechanics. There's none. There's guys that pitch for a reason. They're in that level because they pitch like that, and you can't change that, or you don't want to change that. But that's going to stress certain parts of the body that you need to be aware of, and that's the ones you need to kind of look into to prevent stuff.
I was going to say, so I mean, no such thing as good or perfect mechanics globally, but every athlete might have a specific way they do things.
Yeah, for sure. And I've seen in the clinic, if we go back to the clinic, I treated guys that were throwing sidearm versus guys that were throwing, over the head. And they both will come in with shoulder injuries. So let's assume they've both been throwing for the past 10 years like that. So you're going to find different subtle differences on their shoulder that you have to treat different because of the way they throw. At the end of the day, if they both throw 1,000 pitches and they get sore, they're going to get hurt in different spots in the shoulder, and that's when you have to really be specific of your treatment. And same with the tennis. The tennis serve is really probably closer to a good mechanics. I think if you're going to have a good mechanics, the tennis serve would be probably one that it's easier to narrow down than a baseball throw, but still tennis players will toss the ball different, will have different rackets, will have might be windy one day, might not be windy the other day. That still is going to be a lot of variables.
Yeah.
There, so.
This is a good question that kind of links what we do and what, you guys obviously do. What are reasonable injury mitigation strategies that athletic trainers and sports medicine really can do when they're working with the pitcher who's going to have to pitch, or tennis player that's going to have to play?
Yeah, I think it's the pre that's important. Once I think it's always one thing that I emphasize, for example, here in Austin is, like the pre stuff. Once you hit an injury, it's, you have to take a step back. But the key is to not get to that point. And the more you can prevent to that, like, for example, we know a guy, if you stay with pitcher, guys, it's a sidearm throw. We know his elbow's going to get, he's going to be, if there's an issue, it's going to be that. Well, preseason, what screening are we doing to see what we need to check on him, either on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, or on a monthly basis, to make sure that doesn't flare up. Is it his elbow locally from a PT standpoint? Is it something that we need to look at? Is it, this guy's going to be a starter, so we really need to keep an eye on his recovery days? Or do we need to keep an eye on how many pitches he throws, what kind of pitches he throws? Do we need to keep an eye on, is it a strength issue? Is it something that we need to add to their program? And because once that injury hits, you're going to have to slow down. But the key is to get to that point that it doesn't get to, that you have to actually shut them down. And that applies to every sport. I think the emphasis on the prevention part, I think is huge.
For sure. Yeah. This year with Austin FC, how have you guys done this year as far as, when were you first at Austin FC?
I came here at the end of 2023. So I was doing the tennis tour and the clinic. And then I was, out of all places, I was at a tennis tournament in Los Cabos, really enjoying the beach and the tennis world. And I got a phone call about this opportunity. And, long story short, it ended up taking it. And, from in September I accepted it in September 2023, and then moved here right after the U.S. Open of 2023. So end of September, I think
you're telling me that I have to work harder. I can't be on the beach.
Yeah, so I gotta go back to but no, and then since then, so I've been here for the past 2 seasons, and yeah, this is my second full season with them.
Oh, okay.
So 2024 was kind of a tryout year. Let's see what, this is what I want to implement. Let's see how it goes. Let's see, let's try this preventive measurement. Let's try this preventive screening. Let's try to do this. And, I had new staff that I was working with. I hadn't worked with a performance staff for the past 6 years because I was in tennis and on my own at the clinic. So it was a transition year. Let's set up our philosophy. Let's set up our principles. Let's set up our routines. And then this year has been more, fine tuning. Okay, I know that this, because last year we, knock on wood, we had a good year injury wise. And then, okay, knock on wood, we did good. Can we tune it up a little bit more even? Did any of the stuff we were looking at gave us any information? Do we need to change it? Do we need to do something new? So this year was more of, let's implement that and see how that goes. We had a coaching change, so some of the non-medical stuff changed, loading wise and training wise, and all those variables changed. So we had to adapt some of our stuff to that. But but overall, I think preseason it's our biggest time from an injury prevention standpoint. We have to be really set on what, as a staff, we need to be preset of like what we're gonna look at each player to make sure we don't.
For sure,
things are still going to happen. Obviously, we can't control all injuries, but the more we can prevent, the better. Especially the chronic ones.
Well, knock on wood. We're rooting for the very.
Knock on wood. We're getting there. So yeah, but almost the end of the season.
What led you to want to start your own business with the clinic? Was that always a dream of yours? Just kind of like, oh, I'm already 1099 contractor, might as well also.
Yeah, I think I wanted my own space. I think when I was at the point of opening the clinic, I was always with a team, Blue Jays, Dodgers, Red Sox. I never had my own space, and I never had my own clinic, my own way to do things, my own systems, it was always somebody else's, philosophies. Dodgers was a little bit different because or there was a little bit of that because I was in charge of minor league coordinator. So I had some sort of say of how we were going to run things. But I never had my own space. I couldn't design my own way to practice, way to structure a treatment session. And I also wanted a challenge for outside of sports,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I see a lot of elbows in pitching, but like, how about an average Joe CrossFitter doing, deadlifts and his back blows up? Like, am I capable of doing that? So I think that challenge, different environment, and having my own space and my own way of doing things, I think that was, it was never about the entrepreneur challenge of, I'm going to make the most money I can in a clinic. I was never about that, or open as many clinics as I can. Like, it was more about the challenge of, being with a different environment. And that's really what it worked out.
Would you recommend to the average practitioner out there in sport?
I think so. I think it's worth to look into it. Or not necessarily, just go out and do your own clinic. Like, maybe share a clinic with somebody, or get in a small group of a cash-based clinic, because I think it teaches you to be more selective and more, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Specific with your treatments. Like, you want to be, if you're in a team, you have all day to treat, you can do this, you can do that. In a clinic, you have an hour.
It's like flashcards.
And they're paying you for an hour. So you better get in feeling better in an hour. You can't just say, you do your Normatec boots for 30 minutes. Well, I didn't pay you to do 30 minutes of Normatec boots. Like, but in a team, you can go like, hey, go do your Normatec boots, all this, and then come back and we'll, So the clinic it challenges you to be more specific, to be more selective what you do, and to actually learn of how to do an eval in a certain amount of time, how to do an eval in a treatment, how your outcomes are going to look in the next 2 days. How do you treat somebody that you can't control for 2 days? Players, you see him every day. A patient you might not see in 3 days, and he's going to come back. God knows what he did in those 2 days, but, then he's going to come back. How do you treat, reassess, and all that? So I think it challenged you to be more selective in what you do, and be a better, your differential diagnosis. I think that helps a lot. So I would recommend it to at least try and do some of it. Because I think, and that's what happened to me in baseball. It's like, I was doing the same thing over and over again, that I was like, okay, I'm ready for a new challenge. And, the results are going to speak for themselves. If you're a good clinician, if you take time with your patients, if you do the things that make them feel better, you're going to get more patients. And it's, it's not about advertisement, not about marketing. It's just about doing it. And but if you put an effort of actually learning every single patient and do different things, then it'll be successful. So.
Is the clinic still going today?
No, so I sold the clinic. I thought about keeping it while I was doing this, but it was a little too much commitment, and decided to sell it. Now, it's not something that I wouldn't mind go back. Maybe as a part-time for now, or if anything here in Austin, opportunity-wise, comes up, I wouldn't mind it.
You're in the right spot.
Yeah, so I think it's fun. I think it's a different, obviously the business operations are a little time-consuming, and you have to be diligent with those. But I think from a diversity standpoint, I think it's cool.
Did you have a partner on the business side?
I started with a partner for a couple of years. We shared a space, and then we had kind of like we grew enough that we kind of each one have their own space.
Sweet.
So
were they like strength and conditioning?
No, it was another PT. He was his name was Leighton Peebler. He still operates in St. Pete. His business is it's called Florida Physio. He's basically, the way we split it up the first 2 years, he was more interested in golf performance. He was a golfer growing up. He was more interested in the golf side of things. I was more interested on the baseball, other PT side of things. So we shared that space for a couple of years, and then once we grew enough, we separated, and then
too many clients coming in.
That was a good thing. It was a good problem to have. Yeah. So we had COVID in the middle of it, and that actually Florida was one of the few states that actually it helped our business. So and because we had the ability to stay open until during COVID because we were considered what was the word they were using, essential service, and so
people are
a lot of people that wouldn't mind, they would come in, and actually saw a lot of baseball players that time, and because Florida's a big hub for minor league baseball, and a lot of them couldn't leave the country, and they couldn't keep them at their facility, so they were in the middle of a surgery rehab, and they were looking for people. So no, it worked a lot during COVID. It was probably one of the busiest times, surprisingly. So, but no, it was fun. It was good.
With having your own facility, your own business, I'm sure that helped prepare you for the director role at Austin FC.
Yeah, I think so. I was lucky enough to hire 4 PTs in the span of 6 years, and I think it helps a lot because then you start, your supervisor role, your managing role with different staff, and it's basically the same as a high performance team. So the only difference I think in a clinic to here is obviously here you're with only a niche of players, and you have other professions. So you have your strength conditioning, you have your sports scientists that are a little bit off, they complement your work. Mm-hmm. And compared to in a clinic, you have their other just PTs, so it's easier to have communication with them, or the communication with them is different than it is with a strength conditioning or a sports scientist. Although you're looking for the same result, it's just different language.
How many players do you oversee?
Well,
more or less.
First team, 25. In theory, I oversee. Obviously, I have 4 ATCs in the first team. There's 25 of us. 3 ATCs and a PT. And first team. Second team, there's 1 ATC, and then that's another. I was gonna ballpark it here. I think it's 20. And then we have the academy, which is technically I oversee the academy as well, and I have 3 ATCs for the academy, and I think in total that's about 100 kids maybe. Mm-hmm. So 150, I would say, which is pretty similar to what like a minor league system in baseball was. It was about 150. So
right.
A lot of people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it gets busy.
When you put it like that, it's like try to put them all in a room.
Yeah, I mean, I'm luckily enough. Obviously, my ATCs are great, and they help me a lot, and they do all the work. I just I just check on them, but they're the all-stars. So
there you go. It's all about delegation.
Yeah, they do great.
What do you spend? Kind of like, what's your 20%? Like, I don't know if you ever heard this, but let's say you took away all of your ATCs, right? You're doing 100% of the work. It's impossible, right? So ideally, you've kind of delegated to them all the things you don't have to do. What do you spend like your most valuable time doing?
I think one of the biggest things when I took this role was like, I want to keep treating. So I want to keep doing hands-on. I want to keep doing it. And at that time, the team was looking for somebody that can come in and continue treating and, teach and develop the younger ATCs that were there. And, that's probably the most that I do now. And, obviously there's a lot of administrative duties that I need to do, and I really don't enjoy those, but
that's the 80%.
But that's the 80%. But I do really enjoy the 20% of treating. I think most of my time, if I could, I would just stay on a treatment table or in the gym and just do the day-to-day operations, because I really enjoy that.
That's like that's my gift, that's
and I love the past 2 years I've seen my ATCs grow manually, therapy wise, exercise wise, become better clinicians. My second team ATC, my academy ATCs, and that's part of the job. I think 20% is treating, but also making sure, because a high performance team only operates if it's efficient, and being efficient, you have to have people, you have to delegate responsibilities, you have to delegate to people, but you want to make sure that they do it how you want them to do it. And that also benefits them because they learn and practice new things, and as a team in general, it just lifts us all up instead of trying to do it all yourself.
For sure. I mean, do you see through the grapevine, I'm sure you hear about a lot of other teams where people aren't doing it that way.
We're lucky enough that we have a lot of staff, and I think that's great. I think our previous high performance director, when he was setting up this staff, did a great job basically setting it up in a way that there's enough staff to help. I think we can still, get a few more here and there just to kind of like really be super staffed and all the things that we want to do. But
that's up to McConaughey and the ownership group.
Yeah, I need a couple more guys in there. But I think we do enough. I think we do great what we have, and there's teams that unfortunately don't have that luxury. And there's I'm lucky enough that I have a head ATC that does some of the stuff. There's other directors that share that role with as a head ATC and director, so they have double. They have to do a lot of the ATC stuff, head ATC stuff, instead of doing director kind of guiding role treatments, and and that could be hard. That could be tough. And I think at the end of the day, like I said, like if you have the time to educate and teach in the long run, it's just gonna help you because it's gonna save you your time more efficient.
I'm surprised St. Augustine isn't knocking at your door to be an adjunct professor or something.
Nah, I get St. Augustine students. It's great. Yeah. So they have a campus here. Back when I was in PT school, they only had one campus, and it was St. Augustine, and then they had their second one in San Diego, or San Marcos, sorry. And then they opened a few here in Texas, and now there's Dallas, there's here in Austin, and there's in Miami. So they're growing. But
where'd you go to school? Like, which one was it that you went to?
I went to St. Augustine, the campus in St. Augustine. So
okay.
I was driving from Fort Myers to St. Augustine
that makes more sense
for the weekends. When I went to LA to Phoenix with the Dodgers, my last year of school, I had to go to the one in San Marcos, which was a 4-hour drive, really. But I ended up coming back and graduating with my class in St. Augustine because I spent most of the time with them. So.
And then what do you think of, I mean, it sounds like Austin FC, you're finding some success, and it sounds like you have a good organization there. Do you like the city of Austin?
I do. I think it's great. I think it's got these little pockets of things you can do. You one night you can go to here East Austin and enjoy the food, enjoy the stuff around. Then one time you can go to Rainy Street and do stuff, and then one time you can go hiking. One day you can go to Domain and do your shopping there. Like, it's different pockets of things that you can do, which is great.
Another day, sit in traffic at 5 p.m.
Sit in traffic, and then just sit downtown. But there's also events like ACL, and then there's F1, and there's Food and Wine Festival that we enjoy in November. So I think in the summers it gets pretty hot. That it's tough to be outside, but there's
hotter than your hometown.
About the same. It's pretty similar. So I'm used to it. But you can go to the lake, you can go paddleboarding, you can go to the river. So it's always something to do. Which is great. Yeah, we enjoy it.
Well, I mean, your passion for what you like to do is pretty clear. What do you want your legacy to kind of be when you leave? When you have to, hang the cleats up, so to speak?
I think it would be that I was a leader by example. I think I like to pretend. I like to pretend that I ask my all my ATCs, my students, things that I do myself. If I'm asking because I'm one of the first ones there working and one of the last ones there working, I try to be a hard worker, diligent with continuing education stuff. So I want them to say that I was, a leader by example, that I didn't ask you to do something that I wouldn't do or I haven't done in the past. And that I was, a hard worker, really.
Yeah, that's inspiring. Yeah. What do you think? I mean, to be honest, like looking at least just from a resume standpoint, it does seem like you were able to get to the director role pretty quickly. Decent, like reasonably so. Like, yeah,
I would say I was lucky enough. Yeah, I think Dave Tenney gave me this opportunity with Austin FC, and I'm insanely thankful for that. I think that I was lucky enough to have the opportunity presented, and from a networking perspective, it worked out that way. I think that could they hire somebody with more experience? Sure. But I think I fell up for the challenge at that point. I think I'm in a good spot for that. And I think I still have a lot to learn from a director standpoint. And, the next steps will be, being from a title perspective or from a job perspective, there's now there's titles like BP of medical and performance. So I need to learn a lot more still about sports data, sports performance to be able to oversee that whole department. But I think I'm in a good spot from a professional standpoint. Yeah.
You're always looking for the next challenge.
Yeah. My wife would tell you that. I'm always looking for, what's next. And, I get to this point, okay, well, I feel pretty confident on some of the manual therapy stuff, treatment stuff. Now let's dig into some sports science and something that, will just help me what I'm doing. Still, my passion is being on a treatment table and treat. That's my number one thing. But then how do you implement other things to support your job? Yeah.
Anything you're working on the performance science side you're willing to share?
Nothing specific. I know in the off season, there's a few courses I want to take, mostly I want to shift my gears. A lot of the courses that I've taken so far, more on the manual therapy side of things. I know Barcelona in Spain has a hub for a lot of performance stuff related to soccer.
That'd be a fun place to go.
Yeah. It's FSI. It's a group that has conferences that are related to sports science and soccer. I've done a certification in sports science. It's called CPSS. And so I'm trying to get involved with some of those courses. The problem right now with a lot of this, the more credentials you have, the more continuing education budget you need to have. So because a lot of some credits from one side don't really relate to the other, so it becomes like you have too many courses to take. But yeah, I'm definitely looking more into that soccer specific type courses. So
yeah, what going back to how you were able to get to the director role. What would you recommend for practitioners out there who maybe they have a goal? They're like, I want to get to that level. What are they missing, or what should they focus on? I know you briefly mentioned being really good at treatments, testing out different things, like working in different environments, and then also the networking aspect.
Yeah. And I think if you're trying to, to get to, let's say just pro sports or whatnot, doing internship work always helps. Doing, taking, 6 months to a year of your career to be an intern and learn, that always sets up, because you're always when I'm always hiring, I always look at people that already had that internship experience, because they know what they're getting into. They still want to do it. And then you can get reference from people that actually done this sport and be like, look, this is going to work, this is not going to work. So my first advice would be just get in, do a internship, do a fellowship residency, whatever it is that it's available for you.
Whatever it takes.
It goes quick. I mean, I started as an intern. It was $1,500 a month, and that was about it. My first full-time salary was $28,000, but I got in. And then if you go up the ranks, it'll be worthwhile. And to me, the second part would be, as an athletic trainer, as a PT, there's stuff that you can do that other professions cannot. A lot of that's involving treatment. So be very good at that. Be very good at treatment. So I got to where I'm at because I had a good reputation with hands-on treatment, and they were looking for that. So, and that's something that me and my staff now can only do. So that being your niche is going to get you to places that you want to go.
And that kind of all comes back to when you're in the training room at the Red Sox, watching someone else really good at.
Yeah, I mean, he got there because he was very good at it, and the owner of the Red Sox wanted him there. And, because he was his patient and he was really good. So, and that's the stuff that he could only do. And people will go see him just because he could only do that. So having that mentality of like, look, not to, say that everybody can do strength conditioning. No, but it's a more popular branch of treatments than an actual manual therapy treatment. That needs a little more specialization. So become good at that. There's a reason why I went to school for that kind of stuff, because at the end of the day, they cannot replace that.
Right.
Rather, and that will take you, and that will make you different from other professions. And just put yourself out there, man. Do an internship. Move across the country. I did it many times, and then, just to be there, and then it will pay off. A year or 2 years go real quickly.
Yeah, from the sports tech side, I'm thinking it's like, okay, I mean, I've seen some stuff about like AI generated exercise programs, but What about AI manual therapy?
Don't get me started. Yeah, like going back to my clinic, I was a big proponent of not doing a lot of Instagram marketing for that reason. To me, what's the benefit of putting a low back program online on your Instagram page? You want people to come see you for your treatment because they are not to grow dependency. That's a big misconception. Like, you don't want them to be dependent on you. I get it. But you want them to come see me because you're special at what you do. If you put it online, unless you're selling those programs, sure, that's a good business strategy. But you have to have value in what you do on the treatment table.
Being as switched on as you are, how do you see AI helping the industry realistically versus like what do you think is just noise?
I think realistically it could help with general stuff. Okay, you want to give somebody precautions for their injury. Sure, AI can generate some list of precautions, or you want to put together an emergency action plan for your facility, or you want to put together, a list of to-do list for maintenance or things like that. Great. Saves you a lot of time. 1000% use it. But AI generated treatment advice, I think we're still not there. I think it's a lot of, could be a lot of room for error. Could be a lot of liability issues if you're using that. So, but I think from a basic perspective of, hey, create me a emergency procedure for this, or a blood-borne pathogen procedure, like something like that it can be done, and you just modify it based on your clinic. Sure. I mean, that's very helpful. And it saves you a lot of time. But
it's all about saving time.
Yeah, but and I wish I had it when I had my clinic. That would save me a lot of time. But from a treatment perspective, the human element we're not there yet.
For sure.
I think we might get there. Yeah, sure, we might. But I don't think we're in just like go online and find a program and that will work for you. No, you might be lucky, yes, but I don't think
it's random.
It's random. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like any innovation, there's going to be a bubble. It's going to burst, and out of it will come, the internet. Like out of this will come like real good AI tools. But I just saw in the news yesterday, the White House was calling out Deloitte for delivering some AI report that was riddled with errors, and that's at like a national, maybe, I don't know if it was military or whatnot, but so you can only assume this is happening also.
And it's the number of times in my clinic that I heard, I just Googled something, and it's just like, great, and then it's a good first step that at least you're looking into it, but let's look a little more precisely on it. So I still think the human body is just, there's too many variables for AI to pick up still. So, which, maybe at some point. But
maybe at some point.
Yeah, maybe at some point. We don't know yet.
AI Mauricio.
Hey, maybe that's my next business adventure.
Now, with you got the match on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
After you go and see Hosier. Yeah. But what's your like pregame ritual? Is it kind of like being an athlete? Back to swimming days.
If my wife's here, because she travels a decent amount too with her job, try to go for lunch, usually before a game. And then usually what I do is I never drink energy drinks unless it's a game day. A game day, I do my at the stadium that here in the Q2 I do my C4 every pregame.
Sponsor?
That's it's a sponsor. And then we're on the road, it's probably a Red Bull of some kind, or some sort of Celsius or some sort of energy drink. But other than that, nah, not really. But that's I'm a big coffee guy, but when it's game time, I usually do an energy drink right before. Go. So before we get going.
Every other day gets the 100% Mauricio with some coffee. But game day
is a little 110%. So.
Energy drink. Kind of already went into the mentor piece, but maybe we'll go into books. Like, is there a book you've read in the last few years, or a book you read at some point that really changed your perspective?
It's a tough one because a lot of the books that I've read recently are just medical, so it's kind of boring.
I know. I was like thinking he's gonna be thinking about manual therapy.
I'm about journals here, but it was a book that came out recently from the reasonings behind manual therapy efficiency, and it's basically how the research has changed the last 10 years on the effects of manual therapy. What we believed in the past was true, and now how that's changed in the last 10 years. I think that was a big eye-opening from a perspective, changing the way I will do multiple treatments rather than, or the goal that I wanted to get out of a treatment based on that. So from a book influence, I think that's probably the latest one that I had. I'll be like a big aha moment. I'm like, that makes sense, and that is very true. So, and something that I was seeing in practice as well.
I guess to break it down for me, is it talking about how to combine multiple treatments?
Kind of. So back in the, when I was with Dendike, my mentor, a lot of the manual therapy was a biomechanical. So you stretch this, it gets better, or you move this, it elongates. But now the switch in manual therapy has become less biomechanical, more nervous system related. So are we really stretching, or are we loosening up? I'm going to get a little nerdy here. Are we loosening up the nerves or mobilizing enough that the nerves say, okay, relax for a few, and then you're getting more range of motion? I think it's shifting more to that. And mostly because I was seeing in my own practice, it was like, you would do a joint move on somebody, and the next day will be just as stiff as it was before. So I'm like, well, am I just not doing it hard enough, or what's going on? Am I doing that long enough? Some cases, like in things like surgeries, you do get some biomechanical changes still because they've been immobilized for a while. But most of the times in guys that are healthy, it's more of a nervous system reaction to it. So that, when I read that and I started seeing it in my daily practice, that made me change a lot of my perspective on that.
What's the book called again?
It was basically called the effects of the intervention of manual therapy. It was out of the American Physical Therapy Association. They have a sports branch that came up with that basically revised model of research. I have it in my office, really. And but that was a good one from like okay, we're 10 years later. What have we learned in the last 10 years? So it was good eye-opening book. Yeah.
What do you think the next 10 years is going to be? If you could predict it, what's the theme?
I don't know. I honestly don't see a specific. I think this model is still here for the next few years, and I think I don't know if it's going to shift in any way just yet, but I don't know. I'll be curious. But
we'll find out.
We'll find out. So.
Well, Mauricio, it's been great having you on the Voices of Valor podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
See you guys pick up a W this weekend.
Hey, let's try for sure. We'll go for it.